Hey y'all, welcome back to Homemade Simple. If we've not met before, I'm Lori. On this channel, I love to share ideas every week to help you on your homemaking and frugal living journey, and I'm really glad that you're here today. I know that Valentine's Day is quickly approaching, and in our family, I always try to have a special dinner for Valentine's Day to make everyone feel loved and appreciated. I thought that this was a good opportunity for me to share some ideas to make a meal special, but still keep it budget friendly. I know that for my family, going out for a steak dinner at a restaurant would be almost $100. So that's really not budget friendly and usually not an option for us. So today I decided to try to recreate that special steak dinner at home and more budget friendly. Really, when we think about it, the food itself is not what makes the meal so special. It's the people that we enjoy the company with while we're eating, but that doesn't mean that it's not fun and enjoyable to have some of these nicer meals every now and again. So I hope some of these tips are helpful whenever you're creating a budget-friendly but special meal plan for your family. This delicious cake is not going to bake itself, so let's get started. For sponsoring today's video. Fitville is a revolutionary shoe company who tries to help all of us lead active, healthy, energetic lives by nourishing and nurturing our feet while we are doing our daily activities. So I have recently begun wearing shoes from Fitville, and they are so comfortable. I feel like my feet are supported throughout the day, and I am so thankful for that because I have a really bad problem with foot pain. My feet hurt all of the time, especially in the mornings, and I have chosen the Brisk Walk shoe from Fitville. I can slip my foot into the shoe right when I get out of bed. My feet are able to be supported and have comfort all throughout the day. I can have a comfortable base and balance on my feet and feel good throughout the day. If you are someone who suffers from plantar fasciitis, heel pain, bone spurs, arthritis, neuropathy, any kind of foot ailment, Fitville is a perfect place for you to go to try to find some comfort and relief. Their shoes have wide toe boxes so that your toes don't feel cramped in your shoes throughout the day. The shoes have very good support in the arches and in the heels. Fitville shoes are an excellent option if you have any kind of foot pain. Another really helpful thing about Fitville shoes is they offer wide varieties. The wide shoes at Fitville are going to be perfect if you struggle with feeling too claustrophobic or stuck in your regular shoes. These shoes are always going to be plenty wide enough. So if you are suffering from any kind of issues with your feet, I hope that you will check out the link down below for Homemade Simple viewers, and it will take you right to the Fitville website. You can choose from hundreds of shoe options, and then make sure that you put in the code LORI30, and they will give you an extra 30% off, even of a discounted price. So I hope that you will check out Fitville, and I hope that you will find the relief that I have found using Fitville shoes. For today's special meal, I'm going to pan sear a top sirloin steak for everyone, and we'll also put together a salad, and the most special part of the whole meal is a homemade red velvet cake. Time to start with our steaks, and I went to the store and I found some top sirloin. This is 5 small steaks. We have 5 people who will eat a steak, but however many people you are going to be serving, you might just have to get small steaks to be able to fit within the budget that you have. So this actually was less than $6 a pound, and for all 5 of them it was about $10.50. So that's what I went with. I know that I can make this sirloin be tender and not tough and chewy if I'm careful. This is obviously not going to be as good as a tenderloin or a ribeye, but this is going to be a nice change from our normal casserole dishes that we've been eating recently. This is going to be a fancy meal without having that really high price tag. So if you can find something like top sirloin or flat sirloin, anything that would be, you know, around the $4 to $7 price range, that's going to allow you to have the nice taste and flavor of a steak without paying the $20 ribeye price. So we're going to start by opening up our package of 5 top sirloins. I'm going to place each one of them in this 9x13 casserole dish. You can see they're not huge, but they're not tiny either. I mean, this is a really nice size steak, so it's going to be able to fill us up just fine. I'm going to just sort of poke holes in the steak to allow the lemon juice to go into the meat. This will allow it to be tender through. Okay, now I've cut up some lemons and we're just going to squeeze the lemon juice on the steaks. We'll do this side, then we will season them, and then we'll flip them over. It's always nice to have a nice formal dinner sometimes, you know, every now and then. Couple of times a year, it's nice to treat yourself and the family, but you don't have to sacrifice the monthly grocery budget for one meal. If we were to take the whole family out for a steak dinner, that would be really expensive. So if we can just set aside a little bit of our monthly budget for a nice meal, then that will allow us to not feel restricted, but to also be able to stay within our means. I'm gonna just sort of fling those lemon seeds off. I have mixed together some salt and pepper. It's probably 3 parts salt, one part pepper. It's not anything that needs to be exact. This is just to give it a little bit of seasoning while it marinades, and then a little bit of garlic powder. Just sprinkle that on, and then we'll flip them over and do the same thing to this side. Now, if you have lemon juice but not fresh lemons, that would be fine. If you have limes instead, that would be fine. We're really just needing the acid to help tenderize the steak and flavor it a little. Sprinkle with a little salt and pepper on this side, and then with some garlic powder. Okay, I'm going to put the lid on this, and I'm going to let it sit in this marinade for probably an hour and a half. Then I'm going to turn them over and let them soak on that side for an hour and a half or so. If you don't have that much time, just however much you can, let it sit in this lemon juice, and it will really pay off in the end result. Okay, next up it's time to make our potatoes, our baked potatoes, and you will see we have quite the variety here, and this little one is for Lane. I had 4 large baking potatoes, and then look at this gigantic sweet potato. So I felt like we needed to have this on this fancy meal occasion. So somebody is going to get to pick the sweet potato. Lane will enjoy having the mini potato, and then the rest of us will just have the baked potatoes. So first things first, poke all of your potatoes 2 or 3 times on each side. I know that y'all might think this is not necessary. It is completely necessary, because I actually had a potato explode one time because I missed this very important step. So just take a fork and poke it several times. If you've had, you know, if you've sort of had a bad day, you can poke it like this and it makes you feel better. Next, this one is ready to go. We don't need to do anything to it. I was on the end of my roll of aluminum foil, so I'm just going to do the best I can here. Sometimes you have to wrap it on the diagonal if you don't have enough room, and it's like a game to make your potato fit within the allotted amount. I mean, that's pretty good. This aluminum foil is just going to help it cook thoroughly and sort of insulates the heat. Okay, now for the regular potatoes, we're just going to take a little bit of olive oil and rub on the skin. Doesn't take much. This is really just going to help the salt to stick. Make it a little crispy too. Sorry for the sunlight. This window is beautiful and I love it, but I didn't know I was gonna have a YouTube channel with cooking recipes whenever I designed this kitchen. Okay, now I'm going to just sprinkle salt. Normally I would have like sea salt or Himalayan salt. I ran out of both of those and this is what Aldi had. So just gonna salt it generously. All of the skin. I normally don't have a neat, good idea, but accidentally I put it on this towel, and this is working out really good because otherwise this would be making a tremendous mess. So that worked out. Okay, I'm going to take little miniature potato and wrap it. I don't know why, but I love the little like sheets of aluminum foil that's already cut, and Dollar Tree has a box of those. I think it's like 25 pieces of an aluminum foil for $1.25, but we ran out of those too. Can you tell we're running out of all the things? Doesn't mean we can't have a good meal though. We just make do with what we have. It'll probably take about 2 hours for these big potatoes to cook. I'm gonna put them in at 375. I'll set the timer for an hour and a half, and then I'll just poke them with a fork and see if they're done. You can see Lane has already begun his Valentine celebration. He went to the library this morning and they gave him several suckers. So this is sucker number 2, all up on his face. But the big treat of this meal is going to be a homemade red velvet cake recipe that is from Chris's grandmother. I wish that y'all had been able to know her and meet her. You would have loved her like we do. She was such a wonderful grandmother to my kids, a great grandmother to my kids, and a wonderful grandmother to Chris. She passed away a little before we found out we were expecting Lane. So that was a sad part of the exciting journey that we've had with Lane, but she left us so many pieces of herself, and one of the things that she loved to share was cakes. And in another video, I'll link that video here if you want to go see me and Kendall making one of her famous chocolate cakes for a celebration of Mama's birthday last year. But this was our absolute favorite cake, and that is red velvet. It is bar none the best red velvet cake I have ever had, and I would go into a nice bakery and order a red velvet cake and expect to be impressed, and I never was, because nobody could ever imitate or improve upon Mama's red velvet cake. So that's the recipe I'm going to share with you today. She would love to know that you are making this red velvet cake for your family. So I'm excited to share this recipe with you. We're going to start by greasing our cake pans. She would normally make this cake in 2 or 3 round cake pans, but I found these at an estate sale not too long ago, and I thought this was a perfect use for them. So I'm excited to use these. I've not used them yet. So I'm just greasing these cake pans with some coconut oil. Then we'll let that sit to the side while we put together our cake batter. For the cake batter, we're gonna start with 2.5 cups of flour. I'm gonna pour them in. 2 eggs. 1.5 cups sugar. Use the other hand. This is 1.5 cups of melted butter. In full disclosure, Mama's recipe called for wesson oil. I cannot bring myself to buy wesson oil, so if you want to stick to the normal recipe, 1.5 cup wesson oil. Otherwise, 1.5 cup butter is what we're going to use, and 1 cup buttermilk. Let's give that a good stir. I'm not a huge fan of artificial food coloring, but I found this on Amazon the other day and I was so excited. This is no artificial dyes, it's non-GMO, it's all natural food coloring. So I can feel good about putting this in our cake. I know that there's a lot of people who shy away from food coloring because of the ill effects, especially that it has on children. So I just used an entire container. If it's pink, I don't care. Now Mama, she would have cared. I mean, it looks like it's gonna be purple. Actually, her recipe calls for 2 ounces of red food coloring. So if you want it to be bright red, you can use 2 ounces of food coloring. Otherwise, you can just use enough to make it colored, but it doesn't have to be deep red. The last few ingredients, we're gonna add a teaspoon each of baking soda, salt, cocoa powder, vinegar, and vanilla. I'm going to give that another stir, and then I'm going to put this on the KitchenAid just to make sure that it gets it nice and blended. I'm going to fill these 2 pans about halfway. I'm going to cook these at 325 for about 25 minutes, and then I'll check it with a toothpick. While the cake is baking, I'm going to put together the cream cheese icing. For the icing, we're going to sift 3.5 cups or 1 pound of powdered sugar. Sifting was one thing Mama was not playing about. So you have to sift your powdered sugar, then add 1 stick of butter, 1 block of cream cheese, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. I'm gonna put the whisk attachment on the KitchenAid and just let this blend until it's completely incorporated and good and fluffy. Okay, and this is what it's gonna look like when you're all done. We're just gonna let this sit until we're ready to use it on the cakes. That will be a while, so just let it sit at room temperature. What? Let's just pretend like these are red, or we can change the name to pink velvet cakes. We're gonna let them cool in the cake pans, and then I'll flip them out onto the cooling rack. If it's okay with you, we're just gonna blame this on the new pan that I've never used. It's stuck. We're just gonna act like that didn't happen and hope that it doesn't happen to this one, which it did. Even worse. We're just gonna have to piecemeal this. Y'all can pretend, right? Y'all are good at pretending. And the good news is, when we get this iced, nobody is gonna know except Camden, because she's sitting right over here. are good and cooled, they might not be beautiful, but they're gonna taste good, I promise. So maybe yours will turn out better. I'm just gonna get a spatula and transfer this one to a plate. This is like a heartbreak cake. I mean, it still looks like a heart, but one good thing about this is no matter what yours turns out like, you'll be impressed because it can't possibly be this bad. We're gonna take a little bit of icing and put in between the layers. Every time we would eat a cake from Mama Needham, we would get jabbed in the mouth with a toothpick. I'm beginning to see that this is probably why, because her cakes stuck sometimes too, and she just put them back together with toothpicks. So there's another option for you. Oh boy. I feel like this is where a toothpick is needed. Right here, because it's wanting to fall off the edge. Okay, now we're gonna try to glue this back together with some frosting. Good, so you can't even tell that it's tore up on the inside. Okay, now we're going to sprinkle. I used walnuts. I think Mama normally used pecans, but my walnuts were a lot fresher than the pecans, so I thought it would taste a little bit better. Just sprinkle, and then what she used to do is just sort of pat them on the side. There's probably like an America's Test Kitchen approved way to do this, but this was Mama's way, and her way is always right. And then if you want it to look really good, you can just take a rag or a napkin or something and sort of clean off the plate. And there we go. Not so red, more like pink velvet cake, but I promise no matter what color it is, even if you don't color it, it's going to be delicious. Okay, now it's time to heat up our skillet for the steak. We want to get this skillet super hot so that it will char the steaks. This is probably a tablespoon of butter. I'm gonna let that heat up until it's almost smoking. Okay, the butter is super hot. So now we're gonna put our steaks in. They've been cooking for quite a while, maybe 4 minutes. I'm gonna flip them over. This searing right here is what we're looking for. Doesn't this look delicious? A special meal for a special occasion that doesn't have to cost a ton of money, but it's going to taste great, and the company that you enjoy while you're eating it is going to be even better. glad you came along and cooked this special meal with me today. We really enjoyed it. It turned out to taste really good, but it was also a really enjoyable time that we got to spend together. So I hope that you are able to implement a couple of these ideas the next time that you are looking for a budget-friendly special meal plan for your family to enjoy together. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I hope that you will do that today, and also click that bell icon so you can be notified when new content is added each week. I'm really thankful that you were here today. I hope you have a wonderful week. I love you, and I will see you again next time.